Those glasses are
You know,
fire.
I just bought these because they have that little shade for the light, and I get a lot of compliments on them when I'm on Zoom.
They're hella sexy. Well, welcome live to the Get Up Girl podcast. Today is our Get Up Girl chat. This is our girl gang chat. This is when I bring some of my besties, my gals, my fellow entrepreneur gals that I know all over the United States and world, where we come together and we have sex talks. We talk about the things that some of us are not maybe as open to talk about. And we're going to see where that goes today. So let me introduce my beautiful panel. I have Holly Martin. Holly and I met, gosh, well, you've been on the show many, many times, but she and I met right before the pandemic and got really close. She is a fellow entrepreneur as well. Welcome, Holly. Are you open to talk about this today?
I am. I would say this is a little out of my comfort zone. That's why I'm really excited to be here.
Little side note, Holly sent me a DM and she's like, I'm really excited, but also scared. So let's do this. And so sometimes the things that scare us, right? Or sometimes the things we want to lean into. Then I have Veronica Corona. She is my gal with her little hot glasses. I love them. She is also an entrepreneur as well and creator of a cleaning business. And now she's the CEO. And Veronica and I have known each other for many, many, many years. And so welcome, gals. And Veronica, are you excited or a little nervous to chat today?
A little bit of both, because this is, I agree with Holly, this is totally out of my comfort zone. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to talk about sex, baby. And I'm like, it made me nervous, but I think it's an important conversation to have. So I'm excited. I'm excited as well. I'm nervous.
Right, Veronica? It's such an important conversation. It's something that created us. It actually gave us life, and it's difficult for us to talk about. Or at least, again, that's why I wanted to bring different ethnicities, different ages, different all kinds of things of women to see how the differences of what was behind closed doors. So that is the theme today of how we were raised with sex. How did our parents talk to us about sex? What was the sex talk like? So let's start with our first question. What was the first thing that you learned about sex, like your first memory? Did your parents sit down and have that conversation with you? Did you go to school and you're like, what is that? So, Holly, what was it for you?
I remember hearing the term blowjob, and I thought that it was literally blowing on genitals. And I went to my mom and I asked that, and then told me what it was, and I was like horrified. And this was elementary school.
Wait. So you asked your mom and she gave you details about it?
No, she just said it was like, I don't remember exactly what she said, but I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I would never do that, as a kid.
Okay, keep going.
It was never really, it was never really explained. I just remember very vividly being told, if you get pregnant, I'm disowning you and you're kicked out. And so my only thought was, okay, well, if I got pregnant and I didn't have a place to live and I was on the street with a baby, I wouldn't make it. So I better never have sex because I don't ever want to be on the streets alone with the baby.
Yeah. I've heard that from a lot of women. Don't get pregnant. I mean, I heard that too, but I didn't get the disown, but it was like, just don't get pregnant. So yeah, every time you're just so afraid of sex. So it created this little wheel that would go on our brains of like, to be afraid of it, that sex equals something horrible and bad that we associated. I love that, Holly. I love that story. Blowjob. I always wondered, why do you call it a job? It's like, yeah, well, you know what I mean? Like, who named it? I think a woman named it. I don't think a man would maybe give the name of blowjob. But yeah, it's a job. Okay, I love that. Veronica, how about for you? First time.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? I grew up in an ultra Catholic Mexican family. We didn't talk about sex. That was not even a topic of conversation. I think I was in junior high when I finally learned, because we had the talk, right, about your menstrual cycle. But they still didn't explain sex. But there was a girl that was pregnant in junior high. And when I asked her, how did you get pregnant? She goes, what do you mean how I got pregnant? I said, yeah, how is it that you were pregnant? Like, I didn't know how you got pregnant, because it was not something that was talked about, right? So she told me, and I was like, oh. And then all I could think of is that's how we were made. My brother, at that time, I was in junior high. It was myself and my two brothers, and then my sister came along. So it's just kind of really interesting to know that I had no idea anything about sex until she told me what she had done, and that's why she was pregnant. And that was very I mean, she was the only girl in school pregnant. You didn't see that when I was in junior high. Just a few years ago, but I didn't see that. You didn't see that. You didn't see that in junior high. So
She was
we
in
didn't talk
junior
about it.
high, and so wow, just at normal, regular school.
Yeah, regular. I went to public school, and she was like the only girl that was pregnant in the school. And it was literally our last year of junior high going into high school. So, she was, I mean, we were probably 14, 15, 13, 14, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So young, very
Yeah,
young.
Monica. Yeah, I'm familiar with the way that you grew up, but let's give everybody that's listening and watching as well, because like you said, you grew up in a highly Catholic Mexican family. You don't talk about it. Now, even now as a grown adult, explain, can you talk to your mom about sex? Is it still kind of taboo in your family?
No, it's not something we talk about. I mean, I remember growing up that if there was a movie on that had a sex scene, it's like we had to turn away. Like we have to turn away. Until this day, I'm not going to lie to you. There's a little bit of an uncomfort if we're watching a movie and there's a sex scene and my mom's in the room, or my dad, forget it. Absolutely not. Like, no. But with my mom now, it's like, and then we'll say, well, mom, it's natural. Oh, yes, me, I know. But like, it's still uncomfortable for her, because let me tell you, my mom was raised where a young lady should not hold hands with the boyfriend because they will no longer be a virgin. And even though my mom didn't know the meaning behind it, she just knew it was something bad. And I remember her telling us one day that my aunt was holding hands with her boyfriend in the plaza in Mexico, and that she was worried that she was no longer a virgin, but she didn't really know the concept. And I thought, can you imagine you would have gone back to my grandfather and grandmother with that story? You guys both would have gotten into trouble and over holding hands, which I thought was really interesting. But that was just part of the lack of knowledge, the naiveness. And mind you, my grandma married at the age of 13 and had like 20 kids, right? So it's just really fascinating to see that dynamic on how conservative. And even my grandma, I remember saying, you can't let a man touch you until you get married. So I grew up with the belief that you cannot have sex until you got married.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same thing. My grandma got married at 13, knew nothing.
Yeah.
I even have a story that she told my mom. So my grandmother is telling my mom, her daughter, that she didn't even know how the baby was going to come out the first time she was pregnant. So can you imagine not having that education? So she has this human being in her womb and does not know how it's going to come out.
That's crazy.
So she goes into labor and has no idea that it's going to come out of the, vaginal canal. Gosh, that nobody teach, because she's 13, knew nothing. So just like your mom or your grandma with the holding the hands,
yeah.
That means that same thing with being pregnant. Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now, Veronica, I'm still curious on that. What has your evolution been like with sex and learning about it and coming into a woman and learning your body?
Oh, wow. I think a lot of it, my learning has come from my friends, believe it or not, because I had friends that were having sex. Like I was still in college and I was not having sex. So I had friends that were, and I would like just learning vicariously through them or living the sex life through them, because I was, I'm being the oldest, had to be a good girl. And, being the first to go to college in my family was also another transition, because, she's going to go to college and be there alone. Oh, she's going to get pregnant. She's not going to bring a diploma. She'll bring a baby. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm bringing a diploma, right? So it was kind of a challenge but everybody else around me was having sex and it was just normal. And I was just kind of like, well, I guess it is normal. So it was a hard transition to accept that it was okay to have sex and not be married. Was another big, that was huge for me.
Is it still difficult for you to be intimate with somebody? Like, do you still have that little record player?
No, at the beginning, it was the first time, my first experience, I thought I was going to marry him. Like, because you don't have sex until you get married. Oh, well, he'll marry me, right? Today, no, I think today I'm more comfortable with myself, comfortable with my sexuality, and that it's okay. I won't get pregnant if I hold hands.
Yeah, I hope not. Children.
And that it's okay, that you explore and that you are comfortable with your sexuality. But it took me a long time to accept that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. such a difference in the generations, and then now, you know, the Gen Zers and the new generation after that, compared to us, our parents, their
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah, but still something I won't talk to my mom about. My sister and I, we have a pretty good relationship that we'll talk about certain things, but we don't go into a lot of detail because remember, we both grew up kind of a little bit the same. I think she's a little bit more open-minded than I am because she was younger. You know, we're like 11 years apart, so it's a whole other upbringing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very different. But with my mom, that's not something we talk about. It's still very hush.
Yeah, Holly, same question to you. Growing up with, you know, your parents, I think they're a little kind of similar to Veronica. Like it was, you know, you don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about with your family now, or is it still pretty much the same?
Yeah, no, I would. Well, not my sisters a little, but my parents never. So I was born or raised in a really strict Christian home, and there was a lot of shame around sex. So that's kind of like my belief system was, it was all shame, and basically it was, if I have sex before married, I'm going to hell. And so I'm one of those people, I'm a very big rule follower. And so just from the beginning, knowing that, like, so I didn't have sex until I was married, you know, because I was like, well, I don't want to go to hell and I don't want to be disowned, which, you know, made a very conscious choice. I don't want my kids to, sex is great, right? I don't want them to think of it as shameful or, you know, they're going to go to hell, you know, if they do it. So I have 3 teenage daughters, and thanks to social media, even the current music and just the world, they know way more than I ever knew. My youngest, being 13, knows it all. And sometimes it's just like, oh man, they grew up way too fast. I was really, really sheltered, and they're not so much.
Gosh, okay. I wonder what the difference is in our point of view, grow up too fast. I wonder if it's just grow up more aware than we were. Yeah, see how we put a point of view about that it should be slower. What do you think about that, gals?
Well, when I think of my upbringing compared to my mom's, I knew more about sex than she did at my age, right? I was in junior high, and I know about sex because a friend of mine or one of my classmates was pregnant. So, and then today, you know, I don't have any children, but I do have 5 nieces, right? And I know that one of the oldest nieces, I feel that she's kind of aware, but I also want to be open with them, with my brother's permissions, both of my brothers, that if they need to come to me with something like that, I would love to be open with them and not have any shame around that, because there should not be any shame. It should not be a bad thing at all. And you're right, they are growing too fast, but they're growing. Imagine we were probably growing too fast for our parents because they didn't have the knowledge we have today. And I see my nieces and I'm like, oh my God, they're like little adults. And then I hear their conversations about fashion, about, you know, boys, but they don't like boys, but they do like boys. And I just think it's cute, right? And I'm like, I don't remember at 10 talking about boys. They had cooties when I was growing up.
I had a boyfriend when I was 11, and I was already into boys at 10. Like, I would get all dolled up with makeup and everything and do the whole big bangs. Remember that? If the pizza guy was coming, just if we ordered pizza, because what if he's cute? I mean, I was boy crazy. So I wonder, because I guess I was pretty fast too. When I looked at other people, I'm like, gosh, you're 12? I was way ahead at 10. You know? And yet, you know, I'm a pretty open, I'm going to say socially liberal person. And also I could be very conservative socially. I could be both, you know. But same question for you, Holly. And what was the question?
I don't know.
We got sidetracked. It's a really interesting subject.
Oh, about how fast they're growing up. Like, it's like they're too fast, or is it just that they're more mature? What do you think about that, Holly?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like they're worrying about adult things. I want them, you know, I'm the oldest of 4 girls. And so I played with Barbies for a really long time because I had younger sisters, you know, that were playing with Barbies. And so it's that whole idea too, is that my youngest has a 17-year-old sister. So she's, you know, she grew up a lot faster as well too. You know, I try to make it more about like the emotional side of with sex with them. It's, you're not ready to have sex. Imagine, you know, you do that, and around the school, like that gets out, just all of the emotional idea that your brain isn't developed enough. There's other parts of it too, but not so much the shame or religion side. That's a different side of it. But just the sake of, you really like someone, you give them that, and then the next day they break up with you. Could you handle that right now? And they couldn't.
Such a great thought, Holly. I didn't think of it that way, because they are ready physically. They think emotionally. I mean, I'm a grown woman, and it's still challenging, right? The emotions and learning to navigate that. I totally get what you're saying. I didn't even think about it that way. I want to go back to the shame about going to hell. So it's interesting how Veronica had equals pregnancy, and then Holly, you had equals shame and hell, right? Oh, I had equals slut. You're a slut.
That too.
Yeah, but mine was like really like, you're a slut. Everything was like, no, I had to just protect that I'm not a slut, and whatever it was, it still equaled a slut.
Yeah, and if we say slut in Spanish, Joanna, it sounds even worse. So
what is it?
Oh no, I can't.
It's not good.
It's very vulgar. Yeah.
Really? So it's more vulgar in Spanish than it is in English.
I don't know. Maybe it just sounds more vulgar in Spanish, but yeah, it does. But it's equally to slut.
Yeah.
I'll spell it out.
Okay.
It's PUTA.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know that one.
You did, but I didn't want to say it because I think I still feel it's rating.
It does have a different vibration, that word to it, than slut. Yeah. Yes. You know what? I've realized, diction changes throughout the years with different generations. I don't hear the word slut as often. I mean, right? Just like different words are popular, but in the 90s, slut was like, that was the word. You even called your girlfriends that, as like a term of like, hey, slut. We said, what? I look back at that. What were we saying? We thought that was like a term of like saying like, hey, bitch. That's weird.
Today, that is the term. Hey, bitches. That's term used today. Yes.
So that word, I think, is more prevalent than the word slut was in the 90s, right? Okay, well, next question is, and I've been intrigued about this because I'll watch period pieces or something on like a movie about, let's just say, the 1400s or the Renaissance period, and how sexuality was just so different than the way it is now. I wonder if we're circling back and we're coming back to that, where there was really no you're straight, you're gay, you're this, you're that. In that time, people had sex and orgies with all types of people. It was just part of it, even like the king and queen would have sex, or just people would have sex and somebody would be fanning them. It was just a very different time. And then we came into this like industrial revolution, like in the 1900s, 1800s, and it became very, I think that's when maybe religion started and really, really strong in the United States. If anybody knows better than I do, please let me know. But I'm starting to see it come back. What are your feelings and thoughts on that?
I think people are a lot more free with their sexuality, now. And this even links to me to like mental health. I feel like before, if you weren't straight, again, the shame thing, and if you can't like be true to you and stuff, I feel like that is a lot of mental health issues. Or there's a lot of gay people in Christian religion stuff, and the suicide rate's really high because they can't be true to themselves. So it might come back just around to where now people are more free to be true to who they are, and they're actually doing that. And there's still always going to be some judging and stuff, but it feels like it's less. So maybe they're more free. So they are doing that, which I think is in the right direction, in the sense that people can be who they are. But that's really interesting because there is still the very traditional side of me. So I online dating, and someone put in there, he's looking for a hot wife. And I'm like a good looking wife? No, a hot wife means you're a girl that's open to going outside of the marriage. So we're bantering back and forth. I didn't even know that. And so I'm thinking,
I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that. I'm like, I could be a hot wife.
That's what I said. I could be a hot wife. And they're like, oh no, I can't actually, because I actually am not. That's just in my system. I'm not open to that, but a lot of people are. So I guess that just goes back to, he'll probably find someone that is, and that's, they can do them, and that works. But it is definitely very different now than even when I first got married 20 years ago.
So different, right?
Mm-hmm.
God, what a change. I often wonder if I was a teenager now, how, like I said, I was like boy crazy at 10. I wonder how it would have been different for me. I'm just so curious on that. Veronica, what do you think about things kind of circling back around and where we are now?
I think everything circles back. I remember watching the Tudors, and everything was sexual. Like the king had all these concubines, right? And so I just think it's interesting thinking, when did we become so conservative that you couldn't talk about sex? Because this is way before our time. But then I think the Victorian era came as more conservative, right? Like after the World War I and World War II, make it conservative. But I think we evolved a lot. I think today things are more open. I know for sure I cannot be a hot wife. I could be hot looking, but not a hot wife. I never even heard of that term, Holly. That's interesting because I've done online dating, but I never heard that. I know there's a lot of like, I think that we're still sexually deprived because if we weren't, why do we have all these like, abuse, right? Like child abuse or that, because like you said, back in the days, even the Romans, they had sex with boys, like it was just normal, but then it's not, right? We feel it. I personally don't think it is normal, but back then it was normal. So, what changed? What happened? I'm just trying to figure that out. But I think everything goes full circle. I still don't agree with having sex with a child. I think that's definitely out of the picture. But I just kind of feel that everything could come back except for that. I think we just go in cycles. I think, but I still have trouble thinking if we're so open about sex and everything's okay, why do we have such high teenage pregnancy rates? Because we still have high teenage. Why, if we're so open and liberal about having, using contraceptive, like, condoms, you can go get them anywhere for free, like Planned Parenthood, or having birth control. Why is our abortion rate so high? Like, I have trouble with that. I mean, I remember in high school, they were going to open a Planned Parenthood near our school. They give free away candles. It was like a major big deal. This is like maybe 1985, 1986. I was, I graduated from high school really young, but I remember that it was like a big deal with the parents because they're saying, oh, it's like telling our kids it's okay to have sex. Well, I think kids were already having sex, so let them go get a condom. So I struggle with understanding how is it that we still have these high rate teenage or unwanted pregnancies when we're more open about talking about birth control pills and condoms. Holly, who just said, she's willing to talk to her girls about that because she doesn't want them to, like, it's important to talk to them because then what if they do end up pregnant because they didn't know how to take care of themselves? So I get confused with that, to be honest with you, because if today we're more open and more liberal, why are we still facing same issues? Why do we still have young girls getting pregnant? Why do we still have high abortion rates when there's so many ways that you can protect yourself to not get pregnant if you're going to be out having sex? So I struggle with that. I just struggle with that.
Veronica, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way because we are open. Do you think it's because the gals that are having more of the abortions, let's just say if they're younger, because of the parents are our age-ish and we're still kind of old school? Do you think it'll take another 20 years where it'll stop? Where the kids now, where Holly's daughters have kids and then they're a little more open?
Well, I hope it doesn't take another 20 years. I hope that if I had kids, I'd be more open with them than my mom was with me, right? That they can come to me and talk about sex and talk about anything. So, I struggle with it because I remember this one girl in high school who was pregnant. It was like a big deal. I went to public school. We had over 600, 1,000 students in the school, and only one girl was pregnant, and everybody knew she was pregnant. But today is like a normal thing, right? But back then was such a big deal. Maybe we grew up more conservative, but today is a normal thing. But yet it's not normal because they're in high school. Why are they getting pregnant? Why aren't they taking care of themselves when things are more open? There's some kind of a Planned Parenthood in every corner somewhere. And I'm not Planned Parenthood, but there's other clinics that are for low income resources. If you need to get birth control or get a free condom, I don't know. So I'm just trying to figure that out. It baffles me a little bit.
Do you think it's just a different point of view that they're more open to be a younger mother than we were because we were taught don't get pregnant?
That could be
Like it's a little more accepted. Like my mom was like, don't you dare get pregnant unless you're married. Marriage comes first, right? And I think it's just a different time. So it's not as taboo, but maybe are the abortion rates still up? Like, I don't know the numbers. Are they higher than they were in the 90s or less? I wonder. Do you know?
I don't know for a fact today, but I remember a while back, I was volunteering at a pro-life clinic, and within the vicinity, I think there was like six abortion clinics, and just in LA County alone, there was an average of 300 a day. LA County alone, that's pretty high. So I don't know where it's at today. That was several years ago. It was like 20 years ago. So I don't know where it's at today. But that's kind of scary if that's happening, right? Like that's a high. Even 300 a day is a lot if you think about it.
That is interesting.
I think the culture. Do you remember when Murphy Brown, that TV show, and she was going to be a single mom?
Oh,
I remember as a kid that being so controversial.
It
that she was having a baby. Yeah. And then even Rachel on Friends, when she was a single mom, you heard about it a little more. So I'm a single mom, 3. And if people don't really flinch, like, oh yeah, that's not like, oh wow, you're in that minority. There's a lot of single parents now. So that could be a thing too, that now if you're a single parent, that's kind of the norm. But I can't remember what year it was, but back when the Murphy Brown times, I mean in the 80s when I was really little, that was not the norm. And so you didn't think you could make it, the resources, but now you're like, oh yeah, I could make it. I know 5 other people that are. And so I think it's just become culturally acceptable.
You're right, Holly. And I remember that Murphy Brown. I remember it was a big deal that even the president of the United States commented on it.
Yep, I remember that too.
Really big deal because she was for the first time, I think even on TV, right? They were showing a single mom having a baby. Yeah. And so you're right. Maybe it just became more acceptable and no shaming, because I remember growing up, it was like a shame that you were pregnant and not married.
Well, and even growing up, like when I remember getting divorced, my kids were 1, 2, and 4, and I was 30. Oh. And my biggest thing of all of that was I'm getting divorced. I'm a single mom, the stigma. And that was only 12 years ago. And I felt like there was a stigma. So I feel like it's even raised from then. So I think just, how we were raised, thinking about sex and the outcomes of all of that. Now the outcomes are a little different. So I think that's
Holly, that stigma was more important to you than actually like the end of your marriage.
Isn't that awful? Yeah. I remember being sick at the table and thinking like, I hope nobody asks me, are you married or whatever? Cause it was just like this, I don't want to say that, cause again, it went back to shame. So the shame of not having sex, the shame of words, the shame of anything that wasn't just checking the boxes and doing what was expected of me. Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much for being so open. This is so great. Okay, last questions to wrap it up. What have you noticed? We've already talked about this, but I want to go a little bit deeper with your nieces, for you, Veronica, and your daughters, Holly, and then I could talk about the kids that I know. The difference for them when you see them, even just being in a room with a sex scene or something of that nature, how different they are. What have you noticed?
They don't even flinch. And it's
so cool. Anyway, I love that.
Well, I mean, and I still don't watch, I'm pretty conservative, in the sense, and they're way less than me. They can watch things. They don't flinch. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to be good, because I'm thinking where I came from, there was shame and all that around it. And they don't have that. So that's good. But I do like to point out that that's not really how sex is. Or if there's a scene and 2 people have sex and be like, no, there's like bodily fluids. You get up afterwards. You don't just lay there and fall asleep. I'd point out, like, notice how that happened. That actually isn't what goes down. And so just trying to point out that too, because I think that's really dangerous. What they're watching there is not real life. And so in these movie scenes so I just want to point out, like, there's nothing shameful about that, but that's not real. So when you go to do it, it's actually not going to be like that. Not that sex is bad, but it's different than that.
Damn, that's good. Because then we're getting the sex education that way, almost like you're getting sex education from pornography and thinking it's always like that. Let's see what it's really like. Oh, because we start to compare. It's just like on Instagram, you're comparing your skin to somebody's flawless skin with their filter. Well, there's a sex filter. And the sex filter is everything is wonderful and everybody just falls asleep and all great. No, afterwards, it's messy. And because this thing can create a human being. their stuff.
Mhm.
Interesting. Holly, dang, that was good. How about for you, Veronica?
Well, contrary to Holly, my nieces are still too young, Joanna. They range from 4 years old to 12 years old. So we haven't watched any kind of movies like that yet. And we're still watching Coco and Enchanted, right?
Music? But anything else? I mean, 12 is still enough to listen to.
I think the 12-year-old, we may have experienced something, but I think it's, for me, I personally don't want to make a big deal if there's a sex scene that comes on, right? When growing up, if there was a sex scene, it was like, oh, you cover your eyes. My dad would walk out of the room. It was just like, it was known, right? I want to be that aunt that if there is a sex scene, hey, it's normal. I think we have experienced it with my niece, but with the 12-year-old, going on 21, by the way, we have it, and it was just like a normal thing. Like it was just something that happened on TV, but it wasn't really that sex. You know how it is they're just kissing and they're in bed together, but there's something going on, but you don't know what that is going on. They make it very subtle. And I remember her there, and I remember she looked at my sister, my mom, and I just pretended like I didn't see it. We didn't say anything. We didn't say anything because we wanted to make it very subtle, like it's no big deal. It's just a movie. It wasn't showing a lot, so it was okay. But I want to be that aunt that when we do experience that, if let's say we go to the movie theater and there's a scene that we didn't know that was going to happen, it's nothing normal. I mean, we went to the movie theater and there was a scene like that. We were looking for coins underneath the seats.
Pretend while you start twiddling your thumbs.
Oh, I lost some money. Can look for it. My brothers and I are looking at, so I don't want to be that because I think it's important for them to see everything. And if they have any questions that I'm able to answer them.
Yeah.
How about music? Because I know.
So just today we're driving and it was like a One Direction song and it was I Want to Be Your Last First Kiss. And my 17-year-old is like, oh, this is so wholesome. The music used to be a little more like this, which was really funny because we listened to Doja Cat. We're listening to all these things and I'm listening to the songs and I'm going, oh my gosh, these lyrics, but they're real. And I try to remind them that sex is a physical act, but there's also an energy exchange. So yes, all this talking about whatever, but you are like becoming one with someone else and you're exchanging energy and there's a connection and you're giving something that's a whole nother piece of it, so just remember that part of it that's going to come away with as well. But the music and the explicitness and I don't like it. It still makes me just like, oh, but it's the norm. And even if I don't play it in the house, they're listening to it out. So I stopped being like, we can't listen to that because I know they're listening to it elsewhere. So I'm like, we're just going to embrace it.
Yeah, Holly, I just imagine because every single song has an E explicit. If you're on Spotify, you could barely find one without an E.
And I listen to Big Energy, that song. I listen to the edited version.
Oh.
And so I'm playing it and they make fun of me. I play the edited versions on all of my Spotify. I don't know. I don't like the raunchy. Yeah. And so the kids are always like the edited one, haha, and they make fun of me for listening to that. So.
That is so funny. I have some members that when I teach fitness and not even thinking I'll have some edited, some unedited. It's like, I'm not even paying attention sometimes, or I am paying attention. But when I have the edited, I have some of the younger ones, they make fun of me and I'm like, what is the difference? You know what I mean? But they want we want the real one. I'm like, okay, whatever. But I'm like, there's a different energy even to the song. Can you feel it, Holly? Even the song has a different energy when it has all the, I feel heavy. Yeah. I feel like I don't feel as light and as fun. And what a difference when you look back 25 years ago to the music. A few had an explicit lyrics. Now every single one has. It's just so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm taking notes from Holly. Just whenever I'm asked those questions as my nieces get older, Holly. So I took notes. One of the things as you were talking about this, I hear the music they're playing. I'm thinking, oh my God, do these kids understand what they're still little, so I don't feel that they understand. But then I think of my 15-year-old nephew, and I'll tell you, I don't know if I'm ready. If he would ask me a sex question, like, oh, what do I tell a boy? I wouldn't know what to do. Go ask your dad, right? I wouldn't know what to do. But I know there's music that he listens to that's a little more explicit. But I don't know if he's understanding the concept behind it. And that's something that maybe we just have to be prepared. I love what Holly said, that there's a sexual energy exchange, and it's important that they understand that when some of these, because man, we're talking English music, but my family's exposed to Spanish music, and there's some reggaeton songs that I'm like, oh my God, what did they just say? What they said, right? So there's anyway. there's one song that, we'll be happy, all four of us will be happy. And there's another song that, want to take you and take off your clothes, and it's all in Spanish. And I'm like, uh, that's pretty explicit, right? So, but this goes into a sexual demeanor. So this is pretty explicit. How do you explain that to the kids? What are they saying? There's a song, I'll never forget, my niece is like, she said it in a way, like, yeah, what does that mean? And the song says, dame tu cosita. Does it give me your little thing, right? Like, give me your little thing. And she kind of like almost knew what it meant, but it was interesting because in Spanish it's sexual. But then how do you translate that into English? Give me your little thing. What little thing? What are you talking about, right? So it's just really interesting when she asked me, what does that mean, Nina? And I was like, oh, I don't know. She was younger. Now,
so looking for your coins, Veronica.
Like, you can look for coins, but I'd be like, no, I don't want to be that person. I want to say, well, this is what the song means, and it's not appropriate. But then it's almost like, do you say it's not appropriate, and they're still going to listen to it? And then kind of, I don't know. I don't know. As a parent, I'm not a parent, so I don't know. But I also want to be that person, want to be that aunt that if they ask me, that I have a good answer for them, like what I heard Holly say right now that she tells her daughters, and it's having sex is an exchange of energy, and I think that's very powerful because it's true. So I want to be able to share that with them and not have any kind of shame, because obviously there's still that conservative side of me, like, oh yeah, I don't know if I want to talk about that.
Thank you, gals, for sharing this. This was so helpful because I think the overall theme of today was to be open with sex, and we're going to be as open as we can with our upbringing, and teaching our kids, our kids around us, anybody around us, about the energy exchange and how to speak for what we would like. I think, as a woman, really coming into my own was learning how to speak up with what I wanted with sex, rather than just doing it just to make the guy happy or whomever happy. That was my coming into my own skin. Right. So I think that also teaching the energy exchange and speaking up for what you would like. Because I wonder if these songs are teaching us to just, we're supposed to just do this. And what if you don't really want to do it?
Yeah.
And speaking up to your partner going, this is what I would really like. Because I think these songs are also, the music is also portraying that every single person likes this, or every single person wants this. Well, every single body is different. My body's different from Holly's, from Veronica's. It's each its own little journey and pathway. So when you're with that partner, asking your partner, hey, what do you like? This is what I like. Okay, I want you to learn what, and it's fun, fun energy exchange. And I think, at least in my point of view, this music is teaching that every single person likes this. And so that's interesting too. Yeah. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for being so open. Thank you for sharing your points of views and bringing this to light. And Holly, what is your Instagram handle? And then Veronica.
Yeah, so it's the Holly Martin. So just HOLLYMARTIN.
Yeah, follow Holly, and then Veronica. What's yours again?
Mine is MAVERO Corona. So it's my first initials of my first names. Thank you. Thank you for having us, Joanna. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here on the Get Up Girl podcast, on our girl chatting about sex and how we were raised with it. I appreciate your openness. And until next time, we'll be back again with another girl chat in a couple weeks. I love and adore every single one of you, and we will see you next time.